Hey, it's Anna, and I'm back for part 2 in my little series about breathing and core engagement. If you haven't checked out the first video, make sure you do that, because everything we talk about in that first video comes into play in this one when we start to apply it to moving our body and lifting weights. So if you remember, the foundation of that really good core engagement begins with that great inhale that fills up into our pelvis, into our sides, into our back, and then that really great exhale that equally engages around, where your ribs will draw down and your low belly draws in. So you can again practice just finding that, because as you start to move, you need to be able to keep that engagement. You don't want your rib cage letting go every time you do a movement. You want to keep this really good stacked position. So the short of how should I breathe when I lift is you want to inhale and fill up with air as you lower down, like the easier part of the movement. It's often called the eccentric, where you're lowering. And then you want to exhale on the concentric, or the part where you're pushing the force away. So in a squat, this would be inhaling as you lower down into your squat, and then exhaling as you push back up. Because you want that exhale to coordinate with your core, which is going to drive the movement, either your legs for a squat or your chest for a press of some sort. So I'm going to stand up, and I'm just going to show you from the side what a really good starting position looks like. Now some of us tend to either arch our back, flare our ribs, kind of have this, open canister position. And some of us also tend to want to round our pelvises under, kind of shorten through our side waist and scrunch through here and round through our back. But we want long through our side waist, ribs over our pelvis. This is the position you want to be in the entire time. So you could even practice some of that breathing right here and standing before we get started, and keeping this position. I'm going to transition down to the floor, and I'm going to show you a few different exercises with this technique in action. I'm going to start with a hip bridge. So hip bridges often can give people some lower back discomfort, and usually that's because they're not getting their core involved with it and getting those ribs down. So you want to start a hip bridge, this nice long spine. Take that big inhale, fill up. Take that big exhale, lift your hips, have your ribs drawing down to meet it. So right here, my ribs are stacked over my pelvis. I'm not pushing up and crunching through my back and turning this into a back bend. My ribs are down. And when I do that, I automatically feel my glutes working more, and I feel some core. Inhale, everything comes down together. Exhale, everything lifts up together. Try that with your hip bridge. The next one I want to talk about is a squat. So as a squat, you really want to make sure, again, you start with that really good position. I don't want to start my squat with my core just turned off and just kind of sinking into my low back and, kind of flopping into it. I'm going to start pushing the ground away. I'm going to stack my rib cage over my pelvis. I'm going to feel everything already ready to move, because I want this whole container to move together. I don't want to leave my ribs behind, right? I'm going to inhale as I lower. I'm going to exhale, push the ground away. Inhale, lower. Exhale, bring it back up. Get tall. So this goes for any type of squat, whether you're doing this front-loaded goblet style squat, or you're doing a back squat, a front squat, a lunge. Same thing, right? I want to come down into my lunge with my canister stacked. Exhale as I come up. Now you might have seen some techniques of people lifting really heavy weight where they hold their breath through the lift as they're coming up. That's a more advanced technique, and it's definitely not appropriate for people who are just starting to figure this stuff out, because what a lot of people will tend to do is just pressurize out or down when they do that. So one of my favorite ways to really start to get to feel this is doing that big inhale as you come down and then breathing the whole way through the lift. I'll actually start my exhale here and then from that drive up. Let's talk about some upper body movements now. So the first one I'm going to show you is a row. And this will apply to any type of row, whether it's a one-arm row that I'm going to show you, a cable row, a seated row, a TRX, a lat pull down, all the rows. So in my single arm row, I'm going to start with this really great position of my ribs over my pelvis. Even though I'm not standing, I still want this sort of all in line. My spine is long. Inhale, fill up with air. Exhale, pull your ribs down. I'm going to add the weight. Inhale. Exhale, coming into my row. My ribs are drawing down at the top. Inhale, exhale. So you should feel your core when you're doing these movements. Your core works in every movement you do. So the more you can get it to support you, the more things like rows and push-ups and squats will feel better in your body. Another one I wanted to talk about real quick was a press. So if I was going to do a bench press, I first want to start with a really great position here. Feet pressing into the ground, chest open. Take that big inhale, take that big exhale. I'm going to feel my ribs drawing down. I'm going to inhale, bring my weights apart. Exhale, push them up. So as I'm exhaling, I'm drawing my ribs down. I'm trying to get that equal engagement with my core. And that's going to allow me to have an even stronger press. This also goes for if you do a push-up, right? Starting in this great plank, you're going to inhale down, exhale, coming up, keeping that stacked position the whole time. You don't want to come down in your push-up and then like lose that as you come up. That's going to not feel so great in your back. The last one I wanted to touch upon was an overhead press. Because overhead presses can be hard for people. And they'll often be compensated for by letting their back do some funny stuff, their ribs flare. So if you come to do an overhead press, again, you want to start with that really great stacked position. You don't want to push it up and let your ribs flare and your butt stick out. You want to start stacked and then keep that really good position as you come up. So big inhale, big exhale. Low belly draws in, ribs draw down. Inhale, exhale. Play with it in your body. It can take some time, and you might still want to go back and revisit those the first video where we talked about just getting that really great equal core engagement. I still revisit it all the time because sometimes our bodies just need reminding. So play with it and enjoy the process. It comes with time. I hope this helped you. Thanks for joining me.